Have you ever wondered how WWE wrestlers get slammed onto thumbtacks, crash through tables, set on fire, and still show up to work the next day as if nothing happened? Or how about the weapons like barbed wire, chairs, sledgehammers, and glass?
Real glass!
Are those real or just props? Well, in this video, we're going to answer all that and much more as we reveal all the secrets WWE is hiding from you. And if you stick around till the end, you'll know the rare secrets behind one of WWE's most iconic matches, the Royal Rumble. But kicking things off with one of the most shocking moments from the Attitude Era. During the 1998 Royal Rumble, The Undertaker faced Shawn Michaels in a brutal casket match, and just when the match was about to reach its conclusion, Kane made his entrance. At first, it looked like Kane was out to help his elder brother. But then, he attacked Taker, stuffed him inside the casket, and then set it on fire. The crowd was horrified. Jim Ross was losing his mind. It genuinely looked like The Undertaker was burning alive inside that box. Except he wasn't. The trick behind this stunt is actually very clever. The casket had a secret side compartment built into it, a small panel that could be pushed open from the inside. The moment the lid closed, Taker pushed the compartment out, crawled through, and rolled under the ring while Kane was gloating at ringside. By the time that casket was pushed to the ramp and engulfed in flames, Taker was already safely underneath the ring. The camera never went back to show the base of the casket, and with the fire drawing everyone's attention upward, nobody noticed a thing. But while Taker escaped without any harm, not every stunt in wrestling has a secret. Some weapons are very real and cause serious pain. The thumbtacks are standard metal office tacks with no modification whatsoever. So when you see guys like Chris Jericho, Randy Orton, and Abyss go through thumbtacks, the pain they feel is real. Wrestlers who take that bump do it on their back to spread the pain across a larger surface area, and they do it inside the ring, which stops the tacks from going too deep. However, the real pain isn't in being slammed on the tacks, it's in getting them removed backstage one by one after the show. Another weapon that is dangerously real is barbed wire. However, the production team will clip the tips of the barbs beforehand and then fold them down with pliers, reducing the chance of serious cuts. It still draws blood, it still hurts, but it's a lot less catastrophic than it looks. Triple H's sledgehammer is one of the most iconic weapons in wrestling history, and for years, fans wondered how opponents walked away after getting blasted in the skull by the game. Early in his career, the answer was simple. The head of the sledgehammer was made of rubber. Triple H only used a real sledgehammer when he swung at inanimate objects and furniture, but during the match, he'd use the rubber version. Later in his career, the game switched to a real sledgehammer, but he never actually swung it freely at anyone's head. Whenever it made contact with a person, he'd cup his hand over the metal head so that his palm absorbed the blow before the steel ever reached his opponent. And speaking of Triple H, let's talk about two of his biggest rivals. The Rock and Stone Cold's rivalry defined the Attitude Era. These were the two biggest stars in pro wrestling going head-to-head to determine who was the true alpha of the WWE. Their feud gave us memorable matches, classic promos, and insane moments. One such moment came on an episode of Raw in 1999, right in the aftermath of WrestleMania 15. After losing the title to Austin at Mania, The Rock cut a promo on a bridge, talking trash about the Texas rattlesnake. Austin showed up, they brawled, Rock threw a punch, and Austin went over the railing and dropped into the river below. But in reality, it wasn't Austin. A stunt double took that fall, and the camera cut away fast enough that nobody could tell the difference. The same trick was used when Austin got run over by a car driven by Rikishi. The camera angles were carefully chosen so you never got a clear look at the person's face. WWE has been pulling this trick for decades. The key is always the same. Fast cuts, right angles, and trust that the crowd is too shocked to look closely. And then there's the infamous moment where Big Show chokeslammed Kurt Angle off a balcony on SmackDown. Kurt's brother Eric took the bump, and a crash pad was placed just outside the camera's frame. Jeff Hardy has done some of the craziest things ever seen in a wrestling ring, but one moment stands above everything else. On an episode of Raw in 2008, Hardy climbed to the top of the Raw stage set and hit a swanton bomb on Randy Orton from nearly 30 feet off the ground. It looked completely insane. The fall alone should have put Hardy in a hospital for months. Instead, just days later, Hardy was in the ring challenging Orton for the title. The crash pad and camera trick worked its magic once again. What the camera didn't show was the crash pad positioned exactly where Hardy was going to land. These aren't thin gym mats. They're thick, purpose-built pads designed to absorb the kind of impact that would otherwise shatter bones. The whole thing was rehearsed carefully beforehand, so Hardy knew his trajectory, and the pad was placed to match it exactly. Shane McMahon used the exact same setup at WrestleMania 32 when he leaped off the top of the Hell in a Cell structure during his match against The Undertaker. That fall looked even more terrifying given the height, but a crash pad was waiting for him just outside the camera's frame. Switching gears from this insane jumps, let's talk about one of the oldest tricks in wrestling. The salt to the eyes spot has been a heel staple for generations and was famously used by Mr. Fuji in the early 90s. Just when it looked like Yokozuna was about to lose, Fuji would throw salt in his opponent's eyes and temporarily blind him, giving Yokozuna the advantage. However, in reality, there was no salt involved at all. It's actually baby powder that does the job visually without risking actual eye damage. A small amount of baby powder gets loaded into a sandwich bag, sealed tight and hidden in the wrestler's tights, and when the time comes, the bag gets palmed, the powder gets thrown, and the opponent sells it like they've been blinded. The timing and the misdirection matter more than the substance itself. The green mist used by wrestlers like Tajiri, Muta, and Asuka works on a similar principle. It's just water mixed with food coloring, loaded into a small capsule that stays hidden until the spot calls for it. The referee usually hands the capsule to the wrestler discreetly while the crowd's attention is elsewhere. The wrestler tucks it into their mouth, waits for the right moment, bites down, and forces the liquid out in a burst. The spray technique itself takes months of practice to master. Done wrong, it just dribbles down their chin. Done right, it looks like something devastating enough to blind your opponent. And speaking of blinding your opponent, the eye poke is even simpler. The wrestler never actually touches their opponent's eye at all. They aim for the forehead instead. The finger lands an inch above the eyebrow. The opponent's reaction sells the rest. And from the camera angle, it looks exactly like a thumb straight to the eyeball. But moving on from these clever tricks, let's talk about the secrets behind WWE's most iconic match, the Royal Rumble. For almost 4 decades, the Rumble has been the most anticipated bout heading into WrestleMania. The winner gets a world title match at the biggest show of the year, and it serves as the starting point on the road to WrestleMania. The working of the Rumble match itself is complex, as there are 30 wrestlers involved, and the reason it flows as smoothly as it does is because of a document that most fans have no idea exists. It's called a run sheet, and as former wrestler Maven revealed, it's one of the only matches in WWE where wrestlers are handed a physical script before they compete. For normal matches, wrestlers improvise and plan most of their spots on the fly. But for the Rumble, they get handed a run sheet. That sheet can run up to 15 pages long, and it covers everything from entry numbers, eliminations, specific spots, and the order everything happens in throughout the match. When a wrestler gets handed the run sheet, the first thing they look for is their number. That tells them when they're entering. But the sheet goes way beyond just entry order. It tells each wrestler what's happening around them at every point in the match. Who's getting eliminated while they're coming through the curtain, which spots are planned for which moments, and which feuds are being set up during the match. Referees on the outside help manage the flow in real time. They're wearing earpieces throughout the match, and when a wrestler's elimination is coming up, the ref will give them a quiet signal like a squeeze of the leg or a tap. The ref's role is crucial because the match is happening live and things don't always go exactly to plan. Let's say Brock Lesnar is supposed to eliminate you, but by accident, he gets taken out early during Jey Uso's entrance. You don't just stay in the match longer and improvise. You find someone else, set up the spot yourself, and go out at your assigned time regardless as mentioned in the run sheet. The Rumble's countdown clock creates its own challenge. Every time that countdown hits 0, the crowd's attention shifts entirely to the entrance ramp to see who's coming out next. Wrestlers usually never run a big spot or a dramatic elimination during those final seconds because nobody's watching the ring anyway. Timing the spots around the clock is a skill in itself. Usually, surprise entrances and returns are marked on the run sheet with an X to preserve the shock factor and prevent the surprise from leaking online. That's why you'll see wrestlers get genuinely shocked when someone makes a surprise appearance, just like Kofi Kingston was when Kevin Nash returned at the 2011 Royal Rumble. But you know what's more fragile than Kevin Nash's quads? The glass used by wrestlers during their match. Glass has become a staple in AEW's hardcore matches and was largely used in ECW and during the Attitude Era. So how do wrestlers get smashed through glass and still show up to work the next day? The trick is to use sugar glass instead of real glass. Sugar glass has been a staple of Hollywood stunt work for decades, and WWE figured out early on that it was exactly what they needed for their most dramatic moments. It's made by boiling sugar and water down into a mixture that hardens into something that looks completely identical to real glass. The difference is that it breaks apart into soft, blunt pieces instead of sharp shards, so a wrestler can go through it at full speed without getting cut to pieces. However, sometimes glass spots can go incredibly wrong. The most notorious story came at the 2001 King of the Ring during a match between Kurt Angle and Shane McMahon, where Angle was supposed to suplex Shane McMahon through glass panels that had been set up in the set. However, someone in production made a catastrophic error, and the panels were plexiglass instead of sugar glass. Angle threw Shane into it, and it didn't break. Shane's head bounced off solid plexiglass and hit the concrete below. Shane told Kurt to throw him a second time, knowing exactly what had just happened the first time. And kudos to Shane for sacrificing his body for the love of the game. The man did everything from jumping off insane heights to getting electrocuted by Kane for our entertainment. And speaking of Kane, let's talk about the clever fire tricks used in wrestling. During the late 90s, the Big Red Machine was notorious for throwing fireballs at his opponents. Fireballs look like one of the most genuinely dangerous things in wrestling, and honestly, they're not far off. The trick behind them is flash paper, a material made from nitrocellulose that ignites instantly and burns out in under a second. The wrestler throwing it uses a lighter, usually kept on their person or with the referee as backup, and the flash paper is typically concealed until the exact moment it's needed. However, the Inferno match takes the use of fire considerably further. The goal of that match is to actually set your opponent on fire, and the fire surrounding the ring is completely real. During the first ever Inferno match between The Undertaker and Kane, Kane's sleeve was replaced with flame-retardant material before the match, and cooling gel mixed with an accelerant was applied to his arm. The gel protects the skin, while the accelerant allows the flames to catch visually for the cameras. Years later, when Kane faced MVP in another Inferno match, MVP crawled under the ring mid-match so a production member could rapidly apply the same cooling gel to his back. He was pulled back out, and almost immediately, Kane pushed him toward the flames, and his back lit up exactly as planned. Even with all of that preparation, the margin for error is razor thin. One missed patch of gel, one moment of hesitation, and someone could get seriously burned. That's why it remains one of the most legitimately dangerous stipulations WWE has ever run, and that's why you rarely see any Inferno matches today. However, sometimes concrete can be just as dangerous as fire. Just ask Dean Ambrose. During their heated feud in 2014, Ambrose got stomped through cinder blocks by Seth Rollins and was out of action for months. The spot looked absolutely devastating on TV and solidified Rollins as the most hated man on Raw. The reality is that WWE's cinder blocks are made from a blended mix of foam and plaster. They're sculpted and painted to be visually indistinguishable from real concrete, but they weigh almost nothing and crumble on impact without doing any real damage. The illusion holds up surprisingly well on camera. The texture looks right, the color looks right, and when it breaks apart on someone's head, the pieces scatter in a way that makes it look like real concrete. Up close in your hands, the weight gives it away immediately, but nobody in the crowd or watching at home is getting that close a look. And speaking of getting a closer look, if you want to find out exactly how WWE Championship belts are made, check out this video next.